Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Small Business Show. I'm your host, Wire Ho, the promo guy. Today, my guest is Gee Ranasinha. He's CEO for KEXINO. Gee has been in marketing since the days of dial-up internet and AOL. When is that? He's the CEO of KEXINO, an award-winning marketing agency that helps startups and small business grow awareness, reputation, trust, and sales. I'm going to have a lot of interesting questions ready for Gee. But first, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity, Swire. I'm very pleased to be here.
Would you please give the listener a little bit more background about what you do and what are the changes since the day of dial-up internet?
Well, I remember the days of dial-up internet too well, to be honest, Swire. I remember the days of AOL CDs, which we ended up using as coasters at the end of the day. But obviously, branded merchandise coasters would be a lot better, wouldn't they?
Yeah, yeah. I remember
Yeah.
the day of a CD. Now we just download, and kids don't know what CDs now.
Well, yeah. Well, I think it was quite recently that the sales of vinyl overtook the sales of CDs. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
streaming has overtaken CDs a long time ago, but it was only quite recently, probably about a year ago, that that vinyl overtook the sales of CDs, and everybody said that vinyl was dead, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think I used to be in the CD DVD business, so I was attached to CD, but now it's just so easy to type in a search for whatever song bands that you want to listen to, and you don't even have to change disc anymore.
That's right. And with streaming, create your playlists, share your playlists, and with lossless streaming, you've got very good quality streaming as well, which is at least as good. Some people would say it's even better than CD. With high resolution streaming from people like Tidal and Kubas, but we're not here to talk about streaming. Yeah. So KEXINO, we're a small business agency. We been doing small business marketing, branding, media production for about the last 14 years. For that time, we've helped about 350, 400 startups and small to medium-sized businesses produce better, more relevant marketing strategies and tactics, primarily. We help businesses in all industries. It's the usual range of services. It's nothing specifically unique. We're a small agency. We consist of 19 people in 9 countries, serving a client base which is around the world, to be honest. Had companies headquarters in Europe, but 80% of our clients come out of the US. The rest are spread across Europe, South Korea, Japan, China, and Australia.
Okay.
And we've operated under a distributed remote working model from day one, really. It's pretty commonplace now, but back in 2008, we were one of a very small number of agencies that ran remotely. Like I like to say, we've been working from home since before it was fashionable.
Well, and I know that it certainly has changed a lot, since what, early 2000, even in the late 90s, right? So I know you're saying that, excuse me, marketing is in crisis. Can you let us know why? And then what do you mean by that?
Okay, I think marketing, or what is called marketing today, is in crisis. Not because it doesn't work, but because I really believe that marketing is ideologically disliked in the higher echelons of business. Let me explain that. I think that CEOs and CFOs have an inherent distrust in marketing because it goes against the sequential, rational thought processes that accounts type people love, right? So they're looking for optimizing marketing around efficiency metrics rather than effectiveness metrics. And efficiency and effectiveness are very different things. by trying to processize, industrialize marketing around sequential logic, it assumes that the output is receptive to a sequential logic thought process. But since as marketers we're dealing with human beings as the end target, I don't need to tell you that human beings are anything but rational, right? We don't think and do something in the same way. We don't always behave rationally or logically, which means that effective marketing involves out-of-the-box thinking, creative experimentation, the trying stuff that possibly may not work. And that sort of thing scares finance people, scares them to death. So what we have today is marketing tactics driven by efficiency nerds. Okay? Now, what I need to do really is explain what I mean by efficiency versus effectiveness. Okay? So, marketing primarily is about persuading people, right? At the end of the day. Okay? It's about influencing their behavior in order to deliver a commercial result. Okay? So, in the old days, the best marketers of the day were familiar with concepts such as human behavior, behavioral economics, human insight, psychology, call it what you will. Right? Well, today I have the feeling that 99% of the marketing that we see as consumers today, especially online, has been created to be more concerned with being efficient than effective. It's as though marketing is seen by the company as a branch of logistics. And it all comes down to the definition of efficiency and effectiveness. So effectiveness is how well you're doing something to achieve your goals, right? So it's how successful you are in delivering on what you set out to do, okay? Whereas efficiency is a ratio. It's a ratio between input and output. It's about how little input you can make to deliver a particular output, right? So by chasing efficiency metrics, what you're trying to do is reduce the cost of the project as much as possible to still deliver a particular tangible result. But by doing that, what inevitably happens is you exorcise any semblance of creativity out of the equation. Instead of doing like the basics of marketing, research and segmentation, positioning, messaging, all that sort of stuff, we've come to the conclusion that marketing that's more targeted works better than good marketing that's spread wider. Which is why marketers do all of these gimmicks like tracking cookies and remarketing tags and programmatic advertising and all that other stuff, which, companies like Apple and Google and whomever else are now trying to stop, as well as, obviously, legislation such as GDPR, CCPA, and a number of other ones which are coming down the road. So everybody's focused on delivering something quick and targeted without looking at resonance or saliency, effectiveness of the actual piece of marketing, whether it's ad, communication, whatever it is. Everybody's caught up in the MarTech side of things, the automation side of things, rather than how effective it is. It's like we're focusing on delivering the pizza as fast as possible without realizing that it hasn't been cooked properly and it's got the wrong toppings on it. And I think it's a real problem, especially when you expand this outside into way businesses look at marketing. Primarily, marketing is now looked at as a sales support function. It's looked at as promotions. No disrespect to promotions, of course.
Yeah, I want to jump in real quick. So I've been thinking, especially, the show we focus on small businesses, and I think you get asked a lot by small business professional, how do we get more clients or how do we get more sales? So obviously we don't really want to do marketing. We want to do marketing is because we want more business or more client or whatever that we're chasing for.
Absolutely,
But what you're
absolutely.
saying for the effectiveness is, uh, I could be a firm and run you all kinds of report. The number of likes, the number of retargeting, whatever fancy terms that there is available. But then at the end, if you're not getting client, you're not getting new client. But then,
Exactly. Exactly. It has to move the needle, right? The only
yeah.
reason we're doing this is for sales.
Yeah, I thought of a recent incident that really interesting. My daughter is trying to fundraise to sell greeneries for the holidays for her scout troop. We try posting it on Facebook, which I try to reposting it on LinkedIn. No response. But I was asking her, why don't we just pick up the phone and call the few people that I know that celebrate Christmas, and
There
then
you
we
go.
get sales from those people. So it could be as simple as picking up the phone, or if you know that it works, if you stand at that corner and then hold up a sign and you get business, you can do that instead of going now into all the funnel, all the strategies and all the metrics, and you might spend more money. You might not know that's going to work for you in particular.
Absolutely. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not against all of this Martech. I'm not against all of this slicing and dicing of data and driving marketing data, driving campaigns from marketing data. I'm not against all of that. I mean, in our agency, we do that sort of stuff every day.
Mm-hmm.
My point is that we're measuring the wrong data. And not only that, that we're letting the data drive our decisions rather than have the data be used as a catalyst to make those decisions. Data isn't truth. Data is evidence for us to make a decision upon that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's too many people who call themselves marketers, because I don't think they can call themselves marketers. They call themselves marketers who hide behind the data. Okay, so it's all about plausible deniability. Oh, well, I did this because the numbers said that's what I needed to do. And the thing is, if you adopt that sort of position, where you've come to a logical, rational conclusion based upon data and spreadsheets and analytics and all that sort of stuff, if you do all of that, put a campaign together, and it fails, you'll be looked at as being, oh, well, you tried, you made the right call along the way, something went wrong, let's see if we can pull it apart and see where it was, but, hey ho, these things happen, right? Now, on the other side of the coin, if you spent some time looking at why people buy something, how people buy something, the context in which they provide a positive, rational buying outcome, and you base your creativity, you base the creative output to tap into an emotional-based response. If they did all of that, and it failed, people will blame you. They won't blame the software. They won't blame the process. They would blame the process, right? So somehow, that type of approach is looked at as being less valid than going through some rigorous step-by-step approach. Okay, and in order to affect a influence of behavior, a transformation in a customer's mind to affect their decision-making process, as marketers, we have to understand how people think, how people buy, the context in which they buy, right? There's like System 1 and System 2 thinking. I don't know if you're familiar with System 1 and System 2 thinking. It's from a guy called Daniel Kahneman. He's He's a psychologist and economist. He won a Nobel Prize a few years ago for a book called Thinking Fast and Slow, which, if you haven't read it, it's a fantastic book. It's actually quite easy to read. It's not loads of psychological gobbledygook. It's quite easy. Anyway, Daniel Kahneman expresses mental processes as being two systems, System 1 and System 2, okay? So System 1 is what we would call instinctive. It's quick, it's intuitive, it's automatic. We do it without effort. It seems to require little predetermined thought beforehand, okay? And what Kahneman says is that System 1 thinking governs the vast majority of our decisions and behavior. Other psychologists look at things like heuristics, which is a term to describe the mental shortcuts we have in the brain to come to a conclusion, because we're bombarded by so much influence that the brain can't cope with all of that. So it looks for patterns, it looks for repeatable processes within this chaos so that it can come to conclusions quicker. And System 1 thinking is based upon that. Other people talk about things like the amygdala in the brain. You know, some people call it the lizard brain. It's the oldest part of the brain, the very centralized part of the brain, which is involved with the fight or flight response. And it's that feeling you get in the pit of your stomach when you leave the house and realize you haven't got your phone or you think you've lost it. Okay, you know that feeling? Okay, that's the amygdala talking. Okay. It's an automatic, it's a natural, and the thing is, the amygdala doesn't recognize speech because it's a very primeval part of the brain. And it's interesting because when you speak to focus groups on purchasing decisions, on deciding which product or company to buy from, quite often they'll go to the point of buying and then they'll walk away, they'll stop, they'll hesitate and maybe walk away. And when you ask them why they didn't buy, what they'll say to you is that it didn't feel right. Okay? It's interesting they use the word feel. Didn't feel right. That's the amygdala talking. Because the amygdala can't express speech. It's a feeling. Okay? Now, so that's System 1 thinking. Anyway, System 2 thinking is a lot more deliberate, a lot more contemplative, if I can say the word. It's a slower, more conscious, more deliberative, more effortful type of process. But System 2 thinking is only responsible for a tiny minority of our behavior. So as marketers, I think we need to adopt more System 1 thinking when planning our messaging, because that's, at the end of the day, how people think, how people react. There's a great quote by Jill Bolt Taylor, who's a neuroanatomist, and she says, most people assume that we are thinking creatures that feel, while actually we're feeling creatures that think. I should think is great, okay? And that's the primary position that we need to adopt. We react emotionally and only post-rationalize logically after the effect, okay? And I'm sure you've come across the time where you buy some, because we buy from the heart, we buy emotionally and we post-rationalize logically. So imagine, like, for instance, I've got a bit of a thing for shoes, Swire, okay? I'll hold my hand up, okay? I like a nice pair of shoes. So if I'm walking past a storefront and I see a pair of shoes in the store, okay, and I go, wow, that's some pretty nice pair of shoes. I'll go in and I'll try them on and they're fantastic. And then I see the price and it's like, oh my goodness. All right, they're like a crazy amount of money, okay? If I buy those shoes and I come home and I'm looking at these shoes and thinking about these shoes, right? What do I do in my head? In my head, I'm saying, oh, yes, but look how soft that leather is. Oh, oh my goodness, it's going to last so long, it's going to be so comfortable. Look at the design, it's so classic, it's going to go with so many different things that I have. It's so well made. It's going to last like 5 times longer than like a cheap pair of shoes that I would either get. So actually, I'm saving money. You see what I mean? We post-rationalize in our heads. We're convincing ourselves. Sometimes we do it, sometimes we don't, and then we go back and we return them. But that initial purchase is emotional. And too much of marketing is based on systems 2 thinking about this contemplative rationalization, deliberative process, which is not how people initially buy. There needs to be a balance of one and the other. But what tips the scale is system 1. And this efficiency versus effectiveness position that we have within companies doing marketing is proof of this. The reason why the efficiency of marketing is plummeting is because there's no effectiveness. There's no metric in terms of resonance, salience, and emotional content. If you take 100 pieces of marketing by 100 different companies, especially digital advertising, and you hide the logo of the piece of content, 10 will get you 5 that what you're seeing could be used by any company in any industry anywhere, right? There's no differentiation. So if we can't tell the difference, how are customers going to tell the difference? Do you see what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, I actually wanted to ask you a few more questions, and I'm sure that you deal with that a lot. So most common mistake made by small businesses, instead of you coming up, I think I might know enough from people who told me. I actually want to ask you, like, how a small business would ask you. I think the first question I want to throw in there is, we can't afford marketing. We're a small company. We know that we want to grow. We want more business, certainly, but then we couldn't afford it. Like, is it only reserved for big companies out there?
A marketing budget is driven by your business plan. It is driven by your business revenue, right? And if you can't afford marketing, it's because you're being too ambitious with what you're trying to do. If you're a very small business and you have a certain level of revenue, then any marketing plan, of course, needs to be sustainable for the business. So it needs to be a line item in the P&L that you amortize over the year. It may be a consistent amortization equally month to month, or it may be going up and down because your business is seasonal. If you're in the gym business, for instance, January and February are your peak months of the year because that's when everybody has their New Year's resolutions and setting out to get themselves fit. So maybe you'll spend more money in December and January than you would for the summer months, for example. But it has to be a function of your business. So there are plenty of things that you can do which are cost effective, may not give you the reach that you want from day one, but the results that you can have from day one can be ploughed back into the business, reinvested, to grow that proportion of your monthly, quarterly expenditure on marketing over time.
Yeah, that would be the follow-up question. And nowadays, most people, when they want to do marketing, should I do a Facebook campaign or should I do Google ads? Is marketing only means online right now?
Well, firstly, I take umbrage with the term digital. Okay.
Okay.
When people speak to us and say, "Oh yeah, well, okay, we're looking for digital marketing. Are you a digital marketing agency?" I think the word digital is superfluous. Okay, because everything is digital. TV is digital. Billboards are digital. Print is digital. But more than that, by categorizing or subcategorizing an outcome as being digital, does a disservice to its work and its outlook. It's like putting a barrier up when as an agency, our job is to bring barriers down. So talking about a digital agency, I think, is nonsensical because, I mean, you might as well say electrical agency. Yes, we use electricity, but we're not, you don't say digital agency. Of course, digital, okay? It's not about digital marketing. It's about marketing in a digital world, which is different. And I don't think those two positions are interchangeable. But worse than that, I think by thinking in a digital-centric position, it puts the focus on the wrong thing. So for our agency and for many other agencies, reputable agencies our size, bigger, smaller, we use the most appropriate channels of communication to address a particular target audience group. And that's it. Okay? Maybe that's Facebook. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's PPC. Maybe it's not. It could be billboards, it could be flyers, it could be snail mail, USPS, postal service mail. There's 101 things it could be. The point is, since people aren't doing their homework, they aren't doing the job that they've actually been paid to do by looking at their audience, researching their audience, looking at the channels that they inhabit, where they consume their content, and then looking at where those channels are most appropriate, because just because somebody's on Facebook doesn't necessarily mean that you advertise on Facebook. Maybe they don't want to see you in their Facebook feed. If it was B2B, for example, and you're looking at addressing buyers of widgets, right, and you're selling widgets, probably they're not going to be too happy if you're targeting them in their Facebook feed, right? They don't want to see your widgets in their Facebook feed because they're not using that for work. Right, they're too busy looking at pictures of cats falling off staircases and whatever else that people do. Right?
Yeah. Since you're on the topic, I do wanted to jump real quick to target audience because that's my thing. I always, when clients come to me and want promo item, I said to them, "Who are your target audience? I could be more helpful to you if you let me know who your target audience are." I think a lot of company don't know who their target audience are. What do you mean? We're a restaurant. Everybody eats. So everyone is a target audience. And in your example, everybody wears shoes. Everyone is a client. So how would you suggest a client to focus down to find their target audience? And what are some of the advantage in your point of view that you think having and knowing your target audience are?
I think there's a number of things to unpack there. Firstly, no matter who you are, what you're selling, you, i.e. the business owner, the marketing director, CMO, you are not your target audience. Okay? You don't think like them, you don't act like them, you don't feel like them. And that is very, very difficult for business owners to acknowledge.
Thank you. I'll forever quote you for that, because if I say that, I might not, like I said, G said that, I'll take this clip out and I'll just send it to them.
It's not mine. I picked it up from somewhere else. But the point is, just because you are in the position that you're in excludes you from having a erudite opinion on the behavior characteristics of your audience. Okay? Just in the same way, your audience is never everyone. All right? That is not a target audience. Everyone is not a target audience. Okay? But what's quite interesting is that people will be happy to define who their target audience is, but without defining who their target audience is not. They don't want to say no. Okay? And the problem is, when you adopt that type of position, it negatively influences your messaging because you're trying to be all things to all people. So rather than be black or white, you come out as a shade of grey. Okay? You're indifferent. You're neither one thing or another. And if you're in this middle ground, you can't be remembered. You're not differentiated. You won't be recalled in the mind of your customer. If you look at the biggest brands of the world, or even really small brands, it's because they adopt a very singular, clear, defined messaging position. It isn't for everyone, and they don't make apologies for that. And that should be celebrated. And I think it's based upon, to be honest, Swire, it's based on fear, okay? Nobody wants to say no, right? I'll take your money, I'll sell you whatever, next please, which I think maybe sort of was a mentality to work with 50 years ago, 100 years ago. But the dynamic, the customer sales relationship has changed immeasurably over that time. And the successful salespeople today are not about selling whatever they make. It's about helping, advising, and recommending to the customer the best possible solution to the problem that they have identified with. Or perhaps alerting them to the fact that maybe their problem is slightly different to what they think it is, which actually is another mistake that small businesses make, which is self-diagnosis. But I don't want to jump ahead if you don't want to. But in terms of identifying your customers, again, it comes down to the basic groundwork. Okay, for new businesses, it's a little bit different because that sweet spot of customer may not be clearly defined, and it may change over the course of time as the product market fit needs to adapt and slightly pivot. But to any business which has been in trading for any length of time, it's quite easy to find out who your target market is because you just speak to the customers who've bought from you, all right? And you categorize them, and you speak to them, and you find out why they buy. You find out why they almost didn't buy. You find out what else they buy, what problem they think they have solved by buying your product or service. And this forms the basis, the keystone for the foundation for what that messaging is going to look like moving forward. Because if you've attracted a certain profile of buyer today, it's certainly easier to attract that certain profile of buyer tomorrow rather than start with a clean sheet of paper and wave a wet finger in the air and hope, right?
Yeah, I think you touched on a really good point. I think the first one is, as a salesperson, the fear of missing out. If I'm targeting, I will be at some point excluding some prospect out there who might or might not buy my product. Going back to the shoe example, let's say if I am really focused on only selling big size shoes, size 12 and up, right? Then I'm excluding everyone that's a smaller feet. But then
right.
I might have basketball player, I might have really tall people. So although I'm really target, but I will be known, hopefully, by good marketing as the large shoes size company. So I may get all the basketball player, all the tall people, all the giants, that are coming to my business. So it's different, right? You're excluding, but then you are also more focused, because I remember a customer that I talked to who purchased from me to go to trade shows. I said, who are your typical client? They give me all kinds of keywords and all kinds of requirements. We need to qualify them, everything. But I asked them, then what would you like to buy? We would like to buy some pants. Then I kind of stopped there. You just gave me the whole speech about, what your requirements are, who are they? Do you think they would like the pen from you and then from company B and they also giving you a pen? Are you being focused to your target audience? So I think this is just an example that I wanted to point out. If you know your target audience, then you better figure out a strategy that you can relate to them. How are you marketing big size shoes, and how do you market your company whenever that you try to market yourself?
Absolutely. And, also the offshoot of focusing on larger size shoes means you have less competition, right? So you have the opportunity to be a bigger fish in a smaller pond. And also by focusing on people with larger feet, looking for large size shoes, the propensity to close the sale is greatly increased because they have less choice to go to. It's not like they're going to go to the shoe shop across the street because maybe they don't stock size 27 shoes okay, or whatever. So, it follows through from that as well. So, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. People are frightened to say, you know what we're selling is not for you. And that's an absolute. The thing is, what you're actually doing is helping the customer. You're helping them in their buying process. It's like, no, we're not for you. Okay, so move on. Let's focus our efforts on people who are predisposed to buy whatever we're selling, rather than try to convince people who are never going to buy our product. What's the point? Okay, that's where you get into this hard pressure sales stuff, or CEO ego starts playing into the equation, right? It's like I need to win, and it's like, no, you're not winning. You're helping. You need to help that customer make that decision because you want them obviously to be pleased with whatever they bought from you, tell their friends, and have that word of mouth side of things together. But with the advent of the internet. Okay, a 1-star review is a mouse click away, right? So, you can't survive on that sort of approach for very long.
Okay. Well, I have a online viewer just chime in. Michael Eyewear Inc. is a new company with product never been seen on the market. What would be a good market strategy? So I would say, first of all, can you tell us a little bit more about what Michael Eyewear is, and maybe try to define what a good market for the eyewear, who's going to be at the eyewear, because jeans wear glasses, but then obviously like we were saying, we can't target everyone who wear glasses. Are there niche focus that you might want it to focus on, and what do you think, Gee?
It's about differentiation, okay? For a mass market commodity product, the only way you can survive if you're not a big brand, right? If you're not Unilever or P&G or any of these sorts of guys, your only hope in competing is through differentiation. So it may be focusing on quality, it may be focusing on design, it may be focusing on customer experience, it may be focusing on distribution, maybe focusing on pricing. Maybe your glasses are the only ones that cost $2,000, right? That
yeah, that's true.
It doesn't necessarily mean you get less revenue. You may have less individual customers, but unless you've gone through that process and decided that this is who we're after, and therefore this is who we're not after, you can't stand out. You can't stand out. And standing out is the most important thing to do at the moment. The most dangerous thing to do is to be average, because you won't be remembered. It's like throwing money down the drain with your marketing if you're playing it safe. Your only option for revenue growth is by standing out, being distinctive, so that you are recalled front of mind at the point of purchase. Otherwise, you're the same as everybody else. We talked about efficiency versus effectiveness. Those efficiency-based ads or marketing messages aren't going to be remembered at a point of purchase or anywhere else. Going to be instantly forgotten. So it's just throwing money down the drain. It's throwing less money down the drain because it didn't cost them as much. But if it's not effective, why are you doing it? Just so you can spend a marketing budget that doesn't get cut next year by a finance guy because you didn't spend it all.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you hit it right on the head. And gee, sorry if I'm going back to the shoe example because I know you like it. You probably know, as a person who like buying shoes, what are some cheap shoes that you can buy, and what are some nicest fancy shoes that you need to buy if you're going to a very important event. So consumer out there actually knows all the brands already. Maybe it's just when I need to go to the swamp, these are the shoes that I'm going to wear. If I'm going to a fancy dinner wedding, this is what I'm going to wear. So they know already, but it's your company are the top of mind for the company for fancy shoes, for playing basketball, or doing construction work. So maybe for going back to Bozy, your eyewear example, what do you known for, and what are you specialized for? Maybe your glasses are unbreakable, right? Like G was saying,
Right.
maybe price point is the most cost effective. You can buy 5 pairs and rotate them throughout the week. What are the messages that you could relate and actually have people remember? For example, my space is very competitive in the promo industry. That's why I give
Absolutely. Yeah.
myself the hashtag the promo guy. And I always use the same terms. Why I hold hashtag the promo guy. If you Google my name, you can actually see more of the things that I do, and that's how I'm able to being more targeted instead of I just have everything. You buy everything. Like what we're trying to say is what are your competitive advantage? What are your niche? And if you find one, great. Tell everyone about your niche, so then people remember, and then you'll be known as that niche for your market.
Repeat, repeat, repeat. Okay. It's constant reaffirmation of that messaging again and again and again. It's how ads get remembered. It's how messaging gets remembered. Focus on that particular differentiation that you have decided to set out with your business, and then focus everything around that in 100 different ways, looking at it up, down, left, right, top to bottom, and then focus around that. And eventually what happens is that that particular dimension that you're focusing on becomes synonymous with your brand, because nobody else is talking about it. And so when it does become the topic of conversation, it is associated with either you as a personal brand or the product or service that you're offering. But it's not an instant win. There's no quick wins in all of this. We're talking about something which is tactical, which is based upon time, and using the particular tools available in the marketing armory to balance that with revenue generation, right? So take SEO as an example, right? Now, SEO is great. SEO brings leads. SEO brings us leads. I mean, every single day, and it's great. But if you start doing SEO today, you're probably not going to see any real tangible results for 6 months, right? Maybe longer if it's a very competitive space. So what do you do for 6 months? Do you sit around, twiddle your thumbs, look at the ceiling? What do you do, right? So you need to do other things which bring you a quick win, which may be more expensive to deploy until you get to that point where the SEO kicks in, right? So, for instance, it may be direct advertising of whatever shape or form that may look like, okay? So direct advertising is great because as soon as you spend the money, you get instant eyeballs, right? But the disadvantage is as soon as you turn that advertising off, all the eyeballs go, right? SEO, on the other hand, gives you eyeballs, hopefully increasing eyeballs over weeks, over months, over years. Our best performing piece of content on our agency is something that was written 7 years ago, and it still brings in more leads than any other single piece of content that we have. So it pays off in the long run, but it's a slow burn. It takes time before it reaches that critical mass to deliver a reaction from the target audience that you're picking on. So that's when the strategic element comes in. So we park the tactical stuff away. So we forget Facebook ads and Google ads and TikTok and podcasts and whatever else. And let's focus on the strategic implementation. Okay, so what are we looking to do from now till the next 6 months? How does that change from month 6 to month 12? How does that change from year 1 to year 3? And we build that plan, optimizing particular channels and then creating content which is most evocative to those channels, most effective within those channels over a longer period of time. It's a slow burn, but it has to be strategic strategically driven and not tactical. It's not like, okay, we need to do Facebook ads. Oh, okay, we need to do a new website. And this comes back to the thing I was talking about, self-diagnosis. One of the most common things we see as a marketing agency is a small business owner will come to us and say, I've identified what the marketing problem is. I just need you to solve it. Okay? So, for example, small business owner comes and says, we need a new website. It's like, okay, well, why do you need a new website? Well, because today's website is not bringing in any business. It's not generating any leads, any inquiries. Okay. So sometimes the website is absolutely atrocious. Okay. But usually the website is pretty good. It's not wonderful. It's not going to win any awards, but actually it's not so bad. What the problem is what's being said on the website. Nobody's actually thought about messaging, copywriting, articulating the value in the best possible way for the target audience that you're looking to attract. That bit has just been sort of thought about for 5 minutes and thrown in at the end. Okay? So everything around it looks okay, but there's no meat in the sandwich. The soul is actually missing. So what's going to happen is that small business will spend a not inconsiderable amount of money getting a new website done, which still won't convert because nobody's thought about messaging, positioning, value articulation, segmentation, all that good stuff. And what will happen is they'll point the finger at the marketing agency, say, so will you give us a new website? It's still not working. You're no good, right? It's self-diagnosing, right? Now, if I go to the doctor and I ask the doctor to prescribe me heart medication because I've got a pain in my chest, right? Doctor's not going to give me heart medication. He's going to take a look and see what the problem is, right? Maybe I need heart medication, or maybe it's because I had a spicy burrito last night and I got gas, right? I'm not the expert to tell the doctor what the problem is. That's the doctor's job. Right? You don't ask a mechanic to change the transmission when all you need is an oil change. Right? And it's the same with marketing. It's not up to you, the business owner, to define the mix of marketing tactics that you think will deliver on the revenue plan. That's what your marketing services provider should be doing. And if your marketing services provider is not doing that right now, you need to change your marketing services provider right now. Because they're conning you. That's part of the job. It's not a factory, or it's not like a restaurant where you say, okay, I'll take 2 number 10s, a number 4 and a number 73, right? It's not how it works. You need to find an agency that'll take a look at the business, take a look at the product, take time to speak to stakeholders, customers, personnel, customers who didn't buy as well as who did buy. And then from that, you can form some basis of decision making as to how best to approach the next stage. You have to do that discovery process before you can move anything further.
Yeah, I love that. With that note, Gee, I wanted to be conscious of our time.
Sure.
If listener wanted
I'm sorry, Swire, I can talk forever on this.
I know. I feel like we could go on to multiple subtopics and for another 2 hours. But for listener who wanted to reach out to you to find out more about the diagnostic, right, for the business, what would be the best way to reach out to you?
Best way to reach me is on LinkedIn. You can search for me on LinkedIn. Otherwise, you can find, obviously, the website is KEXINO.com, which is KEXINO.com. Otherwise, you can find us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, on lots of different social channels. But take a look at me on LinkedIn. I try to update my feed quite regularly. Hopefully, have something semblance of interesting content to share now and again. That's it. And if it results in a conversation, quite happy to have that conversation, discuss where your problems lie, give you some advice on how to proceed. And if I can help, I'll help. I'm a small business myself, so we need to look after our own.
Thank you so much. You was so much wonderful information. I'll definitely chop little pieces of out, and I will quote you on a lot of things right now.
Okay, I look forward to seeing it. Thanks very much for your time.
All right, thank you. Take care.
Bye bye.